how I should talk to Ed. I mean, the reason I got to know Ed was because someone actually said to me I should talk to Ed. I was like, okay. So that's how we became friends. So very well respected in the industry, but also Ed is a founder now, and he started Hustle Badger I think a year ago, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just over a
So
year ago.
yeah, so I think every product person has that little dream in their head. One day I'll become a founder, and Ed has actually done it. He's taken the plunge. So kudos to you. You're very brave. And Hustle Badger is very popular, especially in the UK, I would say, really popular. I know a lot of you in the room probably have used it before. And actually, I'll do a poll in a bit. But it really looks like the brand is getting a lot of traction in the last 12 months' time, right? And this is also one of the reasons why Hustle Badger is actually a partner for Women in Product UK. So our paid membership plans, we have two plans, Pro and Plus. So the Plus membership plan comes with Hustle Badger subscription, which is great. So please have a look at it at our website. All our plans are laid out very nicely there. And I'm really, really excited to have Ed here. We'll have a great conversation about Ed's product journey, his journey to leadership roles, but also his journey to the founder role, and how hard it is to be a founder, and what does it take to create a product that the market wants and the market really needs. And of course, there's highs and lows, we all know. But there is also a differentiator in Hustle Badger. It's different from some of the other products in the market out there, and that's probably the most exciting bit. So welcome, Ed. It'll be great if you can. I'll probably do the poll first, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but this is almost like live, user survey. So I've just launched the poll. If you can just respond, that'll be brilliant. Great. I'm just going to end the poll. Okay, so it's good to see. I'm going to share the results now. It's good to see that some of you have used Hustle Badge already. Brilliant. But I'm more interested in not yet, because I think, Ed, that's a brilliant opportunity for you to convert.
Absolutely. It's great because I spend all day speaking to people who are already using it or have heard of us. So it's
Exactly. So I'm more
I need
interested in that. Yeah.
that perspective that we haven't conquered the market just yet. Yeah, there's still more for me to go.
Yeah, I mean, sky's the limit. You've just started, isn't it? So, okay, so welcome, and it'll be great if you can just, give us a little summary of your career so far and what made you start Hustle Badger.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I've Hustle Badger is actually the third business I've started. My very first job coming out of university was working for McKinsey. So I'm one of those like terrible management consultants for my sins, and I really quickly realized that it was too kind of removed from the actual business, the customers. I needed a bit more ownership, and I set up a soft drinks business when I was 24, and that didn't go super well because I quickly realized I was going head to head with Coca-Cola. And anyway, that's a story for another day. But as I wrapped that up, it was around the time that the iPhone was coming out, that digital stuff was taking off, and I was like, what am I doing in physical goods? The future is digital. That's where I should be. And I went and became a product manager. And initially, I got all my product experience in the games industry. This was the time of CityVille and all those kind of Facebook games, and then Candy Crush and mobile games. And I did that for about 5 years, and that's where I kind of learned all the fundamentals of product management, user testing and A/B testing, and all this sort of stuff. And then I don't even remember the years, but I guess about probably like 8-9 years ago now, I went to Rocket Internet. I was living in Berlin at the time. They were building a ton of businesses. I was like, yeah, this entrepreneurial thing, I want to go back to that. I'm going to go and get some really hard commercial experience. It's games, it's a bit fluffy. So I went to Rocket Internet and ended up working on, I think, 4 or 5 different businesses in 18 months. And one was like a build from scratch, and one was a turnaround, and one was a kind of 6 months after it launched until 12 months after it launched kind of thing. So just a phenomenal kind of range of different, like very, very early stage experiences. That led to me coming back to the UK. I was actually in an Entrepreneur First cohort, if you've heard of them, and I set up my second business, LearnerTech, which was a business teaching skills to people in the tech industry, but it was all offline, and that was very nice, and it kind of went quite well. But after about a year, I realized it was a lifestyle type of business. It was going to do very nice, thank you, but this was not really using any of the skills of product management that I built up to that point. And there was a limit to how big it was going to be. So I was also teaching like amazing people at amazing startups, and realized like how many great product roles there were out there. So I started speaking to Depop, who was a client I was chasing, and they were like, well, we're looking for a head of product, actually. Next thing I knew, I was head of product at Depop. And that was my first like real proper leadership role. I got put on the senior leadership team. I got made director of product. I was leading strategy across the whole team, across large parts of the business. And I was there. I joined just after their Series B, and then I left about 10 months before they got bought by Etsy for $1.6 billion, which looked amazing after it happened. So a little lag on that looking amazing on my CV, but no, it did. And from Depop, I went to FutureLearn. I got promoted to CPO in 6 months, and CPO there, it was really a CPTO role. So I was then managing product design, engineering, and customer service. And one of the reasons I ended up at FutureLearn was partly because it was edtech and I was interested in education, partly because Susanna, who is my co-founder, who I'd run into at Rocket as well, was COO there. And we had a great time trying to sort out FutureLearn, and ultimately went slightly different ways, but stayed in touch. And I went to my last kind of full-time role was then at Job and Talent, which was a Spanish unicorn marketplace for blue collar workers. And that was a pre-IPO, like massive company, thousands of workers, tens of thousands of kind of people using the platform. And unfortunately for that one, or maybe fortunately, I bounced out after about 6 months, because having kind of put in a load of process and getting things turned around, one of the founders, who was a co-CEO, was like, you know what, I think I'm going to run the product team. So I was like, great, well, you run the product team. And I was like, doesn't leave much of a space for me. So I kind of had to think about what I wanted to do next, and had a couple of chats with Susanna, and that led to us setting up Hustle Badger.
That's an amazing story. I mean, I can see a trend there, that I think you're the kind of person who likes to teach. I think there is something related to academics for sure. Were you very academic as a child?
I was, yeah. And I think, I have really enjoyed teaching people sort of throughout my career when it's happened in my career. I used to love, I did quite a lot of rowing at university. I'm afraid I'm one of those people as well, and used to enjoy being like coaching other crews and stuff like that. So it gives me a huge amount of satisfaction.
Yeah, but I think the reason I asked you that is because it's all about your passion, right? Because they say that, if your business or your job is related to your passion, it's not a job anymore, right? It shouldn't cause burnout, because you actually love what you're doing. And even for entrepreneurs, right? If your business is very much aligned to what you're passionate about, there is a high chance that it would be a success. So going back to your kind of drinks business and all that, like I'm sure you're more passionate about academics than drinks, I'm guessing. Yeah. No, so that's a great story. So moving on to Hustle Badger, the product, it's again more than a year old now, and I'm sure you have a lot of early customers and loyal customers already. So just tell us a bit about the proposition. So what's the core proposition, and who's the target audience for the product?
Yeah. So we set up Hustle Badger because we were very passionate about education, and we thought there were opportunities there, and we'd had chances to discuss them when we were together at FutureLearn and after that. And essentially, we felt that, you know, the tech industry is still very young. It might feel old, but really, like, you know, on a historical scale, yeah, it's like 20 years old, 25 years old. Like, you know, mobile is like, iPhone came out in 2008, so it's like it's 15 years old. Like product management, I remember doing it 10 years ago, and people didn't know what it was in a lot of cases. So I think, you know, what is a product manager? And that, you know, this doesn't just go for product managers, it goes for a lot of different roles. These roles are still being defined, they're changing very quickly, and there's very little formal education. There's basically like no formal education that teaches you how to do these roles. Everyone is learning on the job. And we knew that, you know, Susanna and I knew that because we kept joining businesses where one of our main jobs was upskilling our teams and putting in place processes. And once you've done that 3 or 4 times, you're like, wait a sec, this isn't just like these 1 or 2 companies. Like this is a kind of more universal need. So that was sort of like one of the kind of seeds of it. And we knew, looking at the market, both from personal experience and also the sort of industry perspective you have when you work in edtech professionally, that, you know, you've got a spectrum of kind of quality and price points here. And, you know, the internet's been amazing for creating a ton of free content. You know, you've got Spotify, you've got podcasts and Medium and LinkedIn posts and all these sorts of things. There's huge amounts of content out there. Some of it's quite good. Unfortunately, it's like buried amongst like a ton of content that is fine but entirely forgettable, or is actually like not very good, or, you know, counterproductive. And finding the gems in that is really, really difficult. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got a lot of education that is great but really expensive. So you've got courses from places like General Assembly or Product School, which, you know, admittedly I've not been on, but I'm sure they are great courses. But if you want to go on one of those courses, this will cost you like £2,000-3,000. Or like, okay, when I speak to people, like individuals, £2,000-3,000 is not an amount that they will spend on a course themselves. They do not have that kind of ready cash around because they've got to pay their rent and they've got to buy food and other stuff. So we felt that there was a sort of a sweet spot where we're like, wait a sec, we want to provide really high quality, like very practical guides built off our experience and the experience of other operators, but that is affordable to the people that need to learn these skills. And that can't depend on them having an amazing L&D budget and tons of benefits. This has got to be something that they can afford themselves as an individual, or their company could buy. Sure, great, that would be ideal. So that was how we started thinking about it. And we're like, okay, well, the other thing that's kind of annoying about, so those 2 kind of like pain points then that we're positioning ourselves against. The problem with all the podcasts and the Medium articles is discovery. We've got to make it really easy for people to find what they're looking for. And the other problem you've got with the courses is you've got to decide what you want to learn weeks or months in advance. So if you're going to go on a strategy course or a discovery course, you've got to know that discovery is the problem. And then you've got to find the course and you've got to enroll in it. And then you've got to wait for it to roll around. And then you've got to do a kind of 4-week course. You know, it's like literally months before you get the skills that you need. And most of the time when I work with product teams, if they have a problem, they need it solved this week. Like waiting 4 months to learn some new skills is not an option. So those were the 2 problems that we were trying to solve for, along with price point. And that quite naturally led us to saying like, hey, we're going to create an amazing wiki, and we're going to have a wiki so that's really easy to find what you're looking for. And we're going to write really practical, high quality articles that tell you very clearly how to do things. That's based on our experience. And we're then going to like price that at a point that anyone can afford. And so you've then got something that if you have an issue like that you don't, you know, you need to solve right now, your last product review was like a massive problem and you need some guidance, you'll be able to go straight onto Hustle Badger. You'll get an article like right now, read it this afternoon, and get some answers and some thoughts on how you can move forwards. So that was how we envisaged it. So we started out with the wiki, and then basically we said, hey, as we publish content, we'll publish that in a newsletter so people can always have, you know, it's not sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So we'll also have a newsletter as a way of kind of constantly giving people new thoughts and new ideas. And we then said, okay, well, as we get more content in the wiki, again, to help solve that problem of you don't know what you don't know, we'll start putting blocks of, or like, clusters of content together into courses. So now you can take our product strategy course. Now you can take our effective job hunting course. So if you want to go and develop a product strategy, we've got a 7-week course that will take you from knowing nothing to not just learning all the theory, but like actually like, here's the template, here's how you're going to fill in the template. This is going to give you a product strategy you can take back to your job. And again, you don't have to do it in 7 weeks. We think 7 weeks is like a reasonable time frame for most people. But if you want to do it in 2 days, you can do it in 2 days.
Especially, I think the job hunting thing that you mentioned, because that is very much current. I mean, the current market last year, especially, and this year as well, it's been very challenging at all levels of product management and even other functions, right? There's a lot of unemployment in the market. There's, funds are limited. There's lots going on. So in terms of your, when you talk about the job hunting course and things like that, so how long, if I am someone interviewing actively right now, how many hours do you think I can finish that course in?
The active job hunting one, so the job hunting one, I think, is a 5-week course, and there's probably, if you went through it like really slowly, it would probably take you 12 hours.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But honestly, there's an article on, writing your CV better, which you could read in 20 minutes. And if you spend another 40 minutes rewriting your CV, you'd have a better CV at the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's brilliant use of time, right? And that saves a lot of time for somebody who's actively in the market right now.
Yeah.
In terms of the target audience, who do you think, I mean, we have all levels of people in this call. So who do you think is the target market for Hustle Badger?
Yeah. And when we set this out, we thought that we were aiming for PMs and senior PMs, and we see a lot of those kinds of people there. But we've been surprised that it also skews much more senior as well. So I'd say if I had to kind of choose the peak of the normal distribution, it's people who are making the transition from senior product manager to head of product. So they're either in their first head of product role, or they're a senior product manager or a staff product manager, and they're being like, how do I make the next step? We've got people who are CPOs who are paying members. So there's content at both ends of the spectrum, and we're filling out, but we're basically working from that central point.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, because that's the demographics for women in product typically as well. And that's why I think the partnership works brilliantly. And by the way, for people in the call who haven't heard of Hustle Badger before, haven't used it, please do have a look, because I think you've got new courses. We'll talk about courses in a moment, but I think I'm so excited about your course proposition, because you've got product strategy live, right? You've got job hunting live, and I'm sure there's a pipeline. So just tell us a bit more about courses. What made you come up with the courses product, and what's the pipeline for this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as I say, we started out with just the wiki because we wanted to get something to market really fast. We wanted to see what the quality of content was like, whether it resonated with people, and sticking up a few individual articles is a much smaller task than building out full courses. So we were doing our own user research, and we do this on a really regular basis, is go and speak to product managers, and ask them like, what content do you want, and how do you find it, and all these sorts of things. And one of the things that came out really strongly from some of our very early research was that people wanted courses to help solve this discovery problem of like, I don't know what I need to learn. So it probably took us 6 months from getting that insight to actually releasing our first course, because building courses takes a lot of time. You've got to produce a lot of content. We had to build ourselves a learning management system, like a proper kind of platform where you can learn it. You've got to test it, all this sort of stuff. But we decided to build our first course around the initial content that was performing really well, which was all around creating a product strategy. So we knew this was a common topic. Like a lot of people getting told by their managers, hey, this is great, but you're not really strategic enough. Okay, what does that mean? Well, we have a course, I'll tell you. We even have a free course. Yeah, you want to see how good our courses are? Go and do our free course, Intro to Product Strategy. And so that was the first one. And that, we'd effectively tested everything along the way, like all the individual articles. Some of you may know I post quite often on LinkedIn. I knew from my LinkedIn posts that the ones around strategy resonated with people. We're getting a lot of engagement. We ran polls on LinkedIn and this sort of thing. So that was our first one. Our second one, similar thing. We knew that we had a lot of content around getting a new job, but it was not quite kind of all bolted together into a coherent whole. So we were like, great, we'll turn this into a course on career hunting, and that'll really give us the opportunity as well just to structure the wiki and the content a bit better. So now this year, now we've kind of done our first. So our first course came out in October. Our second course came out in November. Like our third course is going to come out mid-February. We're going to have 10 courses by the end of this year, because we can do 2 a quarter easily like this without scaling content. So our third course, like the very next one we're going to do is going to be around product discovery. How do you manage risk? Again, it's just something that we know that is a pain point for a lot of teams, a lot of individual PMs. Then we're going to do a series of courses around helping people across that transition I was talking about. How do you go from senior PM to first-time manager? So there's going to be 2 courses on managing people, one on hiring, onboarding. If you don't have a defined hiring process at your company, how do you set one up? How do you hire with confidence? Another one around performance management. So, okay, you've got that head of product role. Suddenly you're managing people. How do you get the best out of them? How do you run a performance review? How do you actually motivate them and I get them excited about what they're doing? We're then going to do one on product analytics. So the kind of quantitative side of how can you use data to inform your decision making. And then we've got another one on leadership, which is more around what we call leadership mindset. So making that jump from IC to head of product isn't just about hiring people and motivating them. It's also, you have a slightly different perspective on how you interact with other stakeholders, particularly like CEOs, other senior execs, how you perceive the business and your role within it. So that's all broadly communication, but a lot of it is also just the perspective that you have. So there'll be a course on that as well. And from that point, so that's the next 5-6 courses. That's going to take us till June, July. And by that point, we've got other ideas which are less kind of fully formed, but we'll see kind of what needs, what are people asking for that we think is going to be really useful to them at that point.
Do you see a lot of demand for AI courses?
We do, and I think that's one area where we are not planning a course immediately, because I don't think we've got anything interesting to say. Honestly, I don't think anyone's got anything interesting to say. Like, it's moving so fast at the moment, but it's basically, do you understand LLMs? Yeah, okay. There is an article on that on Hustle Badger if you want it. And can you write prompts? I'm like, well, who's an expert in writing prompts? Like, ChatGPT's only been around for like a year.
Yeah.
I mean, so you probably know as much as anyone, to be honest. I think, once there do start to become real best practices, yes, absolutely, we will have a course on that. But I'm just not convinced there's real insights to share with people.
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
I mean, there's a few AI courses in the market anyway. So I think, I think that'll fill the gap. But no, definitely, I think your pipeline, or let's say your roadmap, your content roadmap, I think sounds very, very interesting, especially the leadership one, because, one thing I'd like to say to the audience, especially if you are at that cusp between like a product lead, being promoted to head of product, don't wait for that promotion to do these courses. prepare well in advance. And I'm saying this from my personal experience, because when I got promoted, I became head of product 10 years ago. And I literally got promotion overnight from product lead to head of product. You know, there was no like, Nam, you've got 6 months. So it wasn't like that. It was quite an immediate appraisal and promotion. And so almost overnight, I had to learn, self-learn in a way, how to lead people and how to inspire and, you know, manage teams and stuff like that. So a lot of these things can happen quite fast in your life. So my advice would be, don't wait for that day to get the job. Actually prepare yourself way before that, so that you look like a well-prepared candidate to the hiring manager. Would you agree with that, Ed?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the best learning is done, you know, when it's combined with practical, you know, application of that learning. So in a way, I'd suggest like you want to learn, you want to go through the course before you get the promotion. You want to get the promotion, and then you want to go through the course again, because you'll then, you know, you'll be prepared for the role, but also you'll reinforce the theory by actually being able to go and apply it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I'm just there's a few questions already. Oh, by the way, feel free to ask questions as we go along, because we'll do a Q&A in a few minutes. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. Or if you want to ask Ed directly, please switch on your video and ask him as well in a few minutes. But I can see Daria has asked a question: which course was or is the most exciting to work on, and why? That's a good question.
I think, yeah, great one. I mean, I'm writing the product discovery course at the moment, and I mean, they're all exciting. Like the product discovery one at the moment is really exciting. I've written like the first 2 weeks of content basically. So the first week is all about managing risk. And as I was thinking about this, you know, as they say, like, you know, writing stuff is a great way of ordering your thoughts. And so as I started writing it, I was like, oh, I think there's a framework here. I think there's some kind of calculator, some kind of template. And I went and tested it on a few people, and they were like, this is magic. This is just, I kind of knew all this stuff, but framing it in this way has just made everything click for me. And so that's been hugely satisfying, like getting that kind of feedback. I'm like, great, well, feels like this is going to be a good course then. So I'm really excited to get it out and share it with people. But yeah, like that, those kind of moments are what make it personally like really rewarding to work on courses.
Yeah, so well, I would count on you that you'll share it first in our community, because you're in the community as well, in the WhatsApp. So
I will share it first. I will share it first.
You should share it with
Yeah.
all of us. And then just kind of, you know, moving on into differentiation in the market, which is again product speak, right? We always talk about differentiating our products from the rest. And this is a very crowded market. As you said, there are thought leaders or influencers, let's say, you know, writing content all the time. There is Reforge, there's Product School, General Assembly, all that. And then there are the forum type of things as well, right? So what is a differentiator for Hustle Badger? Why do you think people should sign up to Hustle Badger?
Yeah. So I think one of, you know, what we hear from people, and so, you know, forgive me if this sounds a little arrogant. I'm just like sharing what I've heard. Like, so what I've heard is, you know, yeah, there's a lot of, you know, influencers and thought leaders and so on out there. A lot of those people, you know, they're great and they add a lot. I don't want to kind of like diss everyone, but a lot of them have kind of got up to maybe head off level, maybe director level, and then they've gone and become coaches and influencers. Great. You know, Susanna and I have gone like all the way up to the C-suite, and we've seen like the whole stack of things. And I think that gives us a different dimension when we talk about product, we talk about getting a career. We're doing that from the perspective of saying, your CEO is going to think about product in this way. The board is going to think about product in this way. It's one of the reasons why I make a big deal about the commercial side of things and being really close to the numbers and talk about, you know, technology as an investment, is because that's how, like Nam will tell you, like that's how boards think about these things. But it's not a point of view that you are exposed to enough or as much unless you've got to that level. Mm-hmm. So I think we provide that kind of that perspective. Like our advice is like very well researched. And again, we, you know, compared to some of the influencers, we are not, this is not sort of like a one-man band generating content. You know, I don't think of, I am not Hustle Badger. Hustle Badger is more than me. So when we go and create content, we do desk research, we go and interview other leaders,
Mhm.
we then pull together all of those insights together with our own experience to create something really great. And then we go and test it on people and see what their feedback is. So we've got a really robust methodology for creating high quality content that is more than me just being like, oh, I think I'll write about this today, and kind of like jotting down some thoughts. And I think the other thing is our style, which, you know, you like or you don't like. You know, our style is like, it's pretty to the point. Like, we set out to solve a problem, which is, you're a product manager, you've got a problem, you need it solved in the next 24 hours. So we are not filling up, you know, some of our articles are long, like some of them are 3,000-4,000 words long because we want to go into detail. But that is not waffle. That is like really hard hitting advice as far as we can make it. And this is what we hear back from people, because we want to provide that detail. So it's direct, it's to the point. And we try to make it as, you know, like conversational, simple, you know, there's lots of flowery words that I put in my first drafts and I have to cut out because I'm like, ugh, just not simple enough. I wanted to put quixotic in my design article, and that's like, no, quixotic, that is not in a simple words.
Yeah, no, I think so, which means it's very inclusive as well in terms of from a learning perspective. Because again, you've got all sorts of learners in this world, and it's a global product. I'm sure you've got learners, you know, subscribers from other countries. I'm sure we've had a chat
Yes.
about it. That everyone's, again, it's an English language course. Like, you know, for everyone, English is not their native language. So are you saying that for someone whose native language is not English, will be able to understand it quite simply?
Yeah, they should be able to. And we have, I don't know, I'd say maybe 25% of our paying members, their first language, it does not appear to be English because they are, say, living in Berlin and have a German name. You know, so yeah, of course they may be, but, you know, as far as we can tell, we have a significant proportion of non-English members.
Yeah, no, that's really inspiring. And in terms of I mean, I know there is a lot of Reforge subscribers, I guess. So I don't know, like, if, you know, because I think that's the most likely competitor for Hustle Badger, right? And of course they are extremely established, right? So what would you say is one thing or one or two things which kind of sets you apart from something like Reforge?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Reforge is fantastic, by the way. And if you've got the opportunity for your company to buy you a license, great for you. I think there's a few things. So, like Reforge, they do really good content. A lot of it is pretty advanced. So if you want to do like cutting edge growth work, you know, go and do the Reforge course on growth, right? And you'll learn how to build like an amazing growth loop and whatever they talk about. Our stuff is, it's not 101 stuff, but it's slightly more broadly applicable. So it's more generalized. And I think we try and get that balance right, where Reforge will often kind of like create a new framework, a new kind of like theory to be like, oh, hey, if you're doing it, you need to do it this way and think about it. And I sometimes think they overcomplicate things for the sake of creating IP. And we're almost going the other way. We're saying, hey, we've spent enough time in the field that we know that if you're talking about product visions, you can talk about it these 4 different ways. And we'll talk, you know, we'll explain like why those are different and be like, look, honestly, you should probably go for this one. And this is why. But in this case, you might go for this other one. So, you know, in other words, if there are other frameworks out there, we're not going to create our own thing. We're about synthesizing, pulling it together, making it easy for you. Because as I say, we're really looking for that stuff where we give you a breakthrough where probably you know all this stuff, but it just hasn't all clicked into place. And we want to make it all click into place for you, because when we give you those principles, then you're going to be set up for, you know, learning for life, as it were, or kind of like applying that knowledge in novel situations. And I think, you know, there's the other thing about if you don't have your company paying for Reforge, you can probably afford Women in Product and Hustle Badger yourself. Whereas like Reforge, I mean, maybe you can, great if you can, but it's a little bit pricey. So we've just taken this approach where, you know, learning should be in the control of the learner. Like, you should be in control of your own destiny. and that's how we approach pricing.
Yeah, but also I think it's very well put. But also I think add just to add it up, like, you know, in terms of learning, we all know that holistic learning, that is what people need for progression, or even if you're, you know, a lifelong learner, because it's not about just taking courses. It's all about applying. It's about discussing those courses with a community of product people, which is what something like Women in Product offers. So it's about events like these. It's about in-person engagement. It is about, you know, it's a whole thing together. It's a bunch of different things that helps in kind of moving you from that, you know, individual contributor to a management level and then to an exec, right? So it's a bunch of different things. And I guess that I think in today's world, first of all, so competitive, I don't think just one thing can take you there, right? You
Yeah.
need everything. Yeah, it's a proper recipe, I think, for kind of career success. And I think that is what the partnership really delivers. So I think with that, I'll just stop here. There are a lot of questions. Does anyone, before I go to the chat questions, is you know, do you guys want to ask any questions directly to Ed? You can raise your hand. Okay, I think people are shy. I'm gonna read the questions. Okay, so Kim, there's a question. Okay, it's not a question, it's a comment. Okay, so there's a question from Elaine. How do your courses navigate different or similar challenges between B2B and B2C, startup versus enterprise?
Yeah, this is a great question. So so honestly, like, a lot of my experience is in the B2C world, and it's in the startup and scale up space. So, you know, I've done 0 to 1, I did it at Rocket, I've done it at Hustle Badger, you know, I've done it on individual games, I've done the scale up stuff at FutureLearn, at Depop. You know, the enterprise stuff I'm a little less familiar with, and I've done B2B to C marketplaces, but B2B is not like my sort of strong point as well. And so we mitigate that by, you know, being aware of it and asking for more feedback from people who are strong in those spaces. And, you know, sort of over indexing on the other kind of ways. You know, I talked about, like, we go and speak to other experts, we do desk research, we have our own insights. Like, when we know our own insights are less strong, we index higher on the other two methods to make sure that we've got coverage. So, and that's something we're continuing to work against, right? And to continuing to improve.
There's a question from Daria again. I think this is about how do you search for new PM insights and what product management resources you consume yourself?
Yeah. So a very early version of Hustle Badger was effectively just a Notion wiki that just had links. And there are still, you know, one of the things I need to kind of tidy up is, like, there are a couple of pages on the Hustle Badger wiki which are just links to third-party sources. So, you know, over 10, 12 years of doing product, I've accumulated all the best links and that I found, and, you know, gone through everyone else's lists of links that occasionally they publish, and kind of collated them into like a master list. That is the Hustle Badger wiki now. So now if I come across new great sources that are third-party ones, I stick them into the Hustle Badger wiki. What do I do? I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, I check out articles that people follow, I go through the best of lists like everyone else. I think I just probably have a slightly more discerning eye, or I kind of be like, oh, is there anything new here? Is someone else saying it? And the other thing is that, you know, I'm in several communities with other CPOs, so I see what are they talking about and how do they talk about things. So that's good for both kind of passive learning. They'll bring up topics. Oh, how do you think about this? And I'll just see how the conversation goes. But it's also great if I'm thinking about, oh, I want to tackle this, and I'm not really sure. Like, how do we think about kind of, yeah, B2B? How do you think about triaging sales requests? I mean, I've done it once at FutureLearn, but how does everyone else do this? Right. Then that's something I can go and ask them and get a range of views very quickly from people.
That's a great answer. And that kind of goes back to, again, about learning from courses, learning from community, learning from experts, right? Yeah. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got a feedback actually, Louise, who's a customer of yours, I think. So a big fan, that's what she says. It's the highest return on investment on any product training I have tried. You should print those in golden words, Ed.
Yeah, yeah.
You should frame that.
I will. I take little screenshots whenever anyone says anything particularly nice. I've got a little folder which is just like
I
people saying
know.
nice things.
Yeah, I think Kat, can you just save that somewhere for us? This is great. There's a lot of comments here. There's actually one question which is about career. It's more to do with career than the courses, but then you're a coach as well, Ed. So I think you can help.
Mm.
It's a question from Katrina, and she said, if I want to practice and apply product management skills, well, I'm not a PM yet. What entry-level positions would you recommend to consider?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is a great and common question. So the advice I give here is, if you want to become a PM, you've got to look like a PM. So you've got to think through, like, what are all the skills that PMs have, and then demonstrate that you've got those skills. So this really depends on what are the skills that you've already got and where are you trying to fill gaps. If you've done a computer science degree, but you haven't been a PM, then actually maybe you could go and become an engineer. That'd be an easy way to go. But you could also go into like a commercial role or a strategy role, because if you've done an engineering degree, like a computer science degree, and you've got a strategic background, you've kind of covered all your bases there. So I'd think about the skills that product managers have, making strategic decisions, building things, making things happen, speaking to stakeholders, speaking to users. You'll find lists of these not just on Hustle Badger, but elsewhere as well. Go through and sort of say, how many of these can I evidence in my CV right now? And then think about what are the projects, what are the jobs, what are the side hustles that you can do that fill out all the skills that you're missing, so you've got the complete set. And then you can make the case that even if you haven't had a product manager role, you've got everything it takes to do that role.
Yeah, that's a great. I hope that answers your question, Katerina. It's a very good question. And also in our community in Women in Product, we have a lot of people who actually have joined from sales, marketing backgrounds, who are pivoting towards a product career. It's not the best market to pivot at the moment. I think it's challenging, but then also again, I think on the positive note, they probably bring a different perspective on the table, right? If you're moving from sales to a product management role, as you said, you're probably quite good in terms of commercial thinking, new biz dev, and that kind of stuff, right? So it's always about, trying to use your skill in the right way. In terms of your, Ed, in terms of your user group or user base, right? And this is interesting. Like, what is the most active time? Like, are you able to capture when do people learn these courses or read your articles?
Oof. I don't actually know, because I haven't looked at it, because it always surprises me that we have people on the site now all the time. It's kind of gone from
Yeah.
that sort of thing where a year ago you'd be like, oh, there's someone on the site, pretty exciting. And now I'm like, wow, there's 50 people on the site. That seems a little high for this time of day, but also it's more global, right? So we literally have users all over the world. So combining those things of, well, what time is it locally? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that's just again user behavior. I'm super curious. Like, when do people find time? Yeah, I'm just selfishly curious. There's another question from Elaine. I've recently started reviewing different frameworks for product analytics, discovery, strategy. In my head, I wonder whether it's possible to create some kind of mind map of different frameworks. There's a lot of great information online and in the books, but at the same time, very convoluted. What's your advice on approaching different learning frameworks and their applications?
Okay, so if you're talking about discovery, and again, this is something that will be in the upcoming discovery course, then the way that I've started thinking about this is there's a hierarchy of evidence for creating a product feature. And why do I talk about that? So a hierarchy in sense, like, some bits of evidence are more valuable than others. If you've gone and spoken to 3 customers, real users, that is more valuable than going and speaking to your designer and your tech lead about whether this is a good idea. But yeah, speaking to your designer and your tech lead is more important than just writing it down on paper yourself. And an A/B test is going to be even more important than speaking to people and getting qualitative feedback. So I think about it in terms of, what are the different levels in that hierarchy that go from, this is basically my intuition, I've done some planning, I've got some anecdotal research, I've done proper qualitative research, I've got actual data. And I think about, how do you move your certainty up that hierarchy? So if you've spoken to your team and you've got an impact model and you've got like some great ideas, but you haven't spoken to anyone outside the team, well, go and speak to users. And if you've spoken to some users, but you don't have any quantitative data, like, don't go and speak to more users, go and get some quantitative data, right? And the nice thing about that hierarchy is that as you go up it, you not only increase your confidence, but it also, the time you need to move up that hierarchy increases. So a quantitative test takes more time and money to run than a qualitative test. Like an A/B test takes more time and money than user interviews. So you only do the A/B test once you've gone through the other levels. You don't go from, oh, I've got a great idea, let's run an A/B test. You're like, well, wait a sec. That's a very expensive way to test something that's very low confidence. Let's go and speak to some users. Let's go and speak to some people internally. If that all sounds good, right, then let's run an A/B test, because now we can justify the expense of an A/B test.
Yeah, I hope that answered your question, Elaine. Then I've got one more from Nicole. When will the new course be live? I love this question. There is immediate demand. I love this.
Yeah. So the first, where are we? Like the first article will actually, so that, our courses are basically, they're compilations of articles, basically, with a little bit of, smoothing and filling to make it all coherent. So the discovery course, I think, it's going to be 5 weeks. It's probably effectively like 8 articles. Probably 3 of those are live already. One of them is going to go live tomorrow, fingers crossed. Now I'm making a public commitment. I told Louise it would go live tomorrow. Recorded. I told Louise it would go live tomorrow. Yeah, because she read the draft of it. The second article is already written. That will probably go live next week. So it's not like, oh, it's just going to come out fully formed in middle of February. It will it'll gradually be there in bits, and then February will be like, oh, all these things, this is how you think about them all together.
That's very exciting. It's very exciting. You will definitely have more users now after this call. That's my guess. I love this. There's another one from Daria. Daria is on a roll today. She's asking so many questions. I love it. So her question is, what is your opinion? What in your opinion is the best thing about being a PM? So how would you sell the role of the PM to the world?
Yeah. I mean, I decided to go into product management very deliberately, because after I set up the soft drinks business and I sort of made the macro career economic decision to go into the technology space, I was like, okay, I'm going to work in the tech world. Like, what am I going to do there? It's like, should I go into marketing? Should I go into some, it's like, I don't know how to code. And I started asking around. And the reason that I chose product management was, it was a skill set that I really liked. So it was a blend of qualitative insights. So going and talking to people and empathizing with them, and analytical insights. I was like, yeah, playing with numbers. I like that. It was a creative process. The thing I loved about doing a soft drinks company was that I had physical products. I went into shops and I saw my drink in the fridges. That was amazing. So it was like that kind of creative process. It was the blended skill set across analytical and empathetic skills. And the other thing was, I spoke to a lot of people at companies like Google and Facebook, and they said, effectively, product management is the dominant function in the business. So, different companies have different dominant, and this is not true for all tech companies, I'd say, or all companies that say they are tech companies. But for lots of companies that we would consider to be exciting, product-led, the clue is in the name, product-led companies, like product management is the dominant function, i.e. product is driving the strategy of that business. And that means you've got a lot of influence in the company and you're on a track to senior positions. There will be a CPO role. The CPO is the kind of like the natural successor of the CEO, things like that. So that for me was also, I was like, yeah, I want to have influence inside the company, and being a product manager feels like a really good way of having that.
That's brilliant. But that also shows that it wasn't just a random decision. Like you had in your head, like, how would you map your career? What are the prospects for you in the future? So I think that's a very good way of mapping out one's career anyway, right?
Yes.
No matter what
Yes.
role you choose. Yeah.
I'd say, like, look, the small decisions you make in your career about, should I take this job or that job? Like, you'll get some of those right, you'll get some of them wrong. They're very difficult to call because, they're all binary decisions. The big calls about, well, do you want to be a product manager? Do you want to work in technology? Like, these you can take on a much more macro basis. These trends move quite slowly. And I was like, well, the tech industry is growing and it's going to be growing for my entire career. So if I go and work in the tech industry, I'm always going to have better job prospects than if I work outside the tech industry. And that is definitely true. And that was not a difficult judgment to make. And you've already made that judgment. So congratulations.
There's just one last question I can take, and that's from Elaine again, and it's about coaching and the fact that it's very expensive. So just one thing to remind everybody. So if you look at the WIP UK proposition, we actually have coaching as part of our proposition along with Hustle Badger. And for the pro package, we actually have 2 coaching sessions free along with the package. And that's worth a lot of money because, as you say, coaching is expensive. It's true. And Ed is actually a coach as well for WIP UK. So you never know. He might be your coach if you sign up. How lucky, right? Yeah, but I think the question that Elaine is asking is, how important do you think is coaching for senior PMs trying to go into head of roles?
I mean, there's no doubt it can be tremendously beneficial, right? I think it really depends how good is your manager as well. If you've got an amazing manager, they will give you all the support and development that you need. That could be a little bit out of your control, right? And unfortunately, you can definitely slow down in terms of your progression if you don't have the right person at the right time. So I'm a coach, as Nam says, for women in product. The other thing that I do is, as part of Hustle Badger at the moment, you can get a half-hour call with me. It's called office hours. So if you're a paying member, you'll get it's a little bit hidden, but you can sign up for a half-hour call whenever you want. And I limit those numbers, but it's a way of me staying really close to my user base. And making sure I'm really kind of know the problems that people are trying to solve. So that's why I do it. It's like customer research for me. But from your point of view, it means you can get a half-hour call with me whenever you want, or almost whenever you want. How important is it? I mean, I think it's one of those things that can give you a real boost. Like if you get stuck, the question is like, are you getting stuck? So if you're not getting stuck, if you're like, hey, I need to do this and do that, and now I just, if you've got it all mapped out, don't freak out that you haven't got a coach. But if you're like, oh, I'm not feeling good about this, I'm not sure where to go next, like that's the time when speaking to a really good coach can really unblock you, and in 1 or 2 conversations can help you make quite a radical change in your mindset or how you're thinking about things. So that's when it's really valuable.
Exactly. And then you always have the network as well. We are surrounded by brilliant product people. And, they might not be the coach, but at least someone like a sounding board, or you can plan your careers together. That's amazing as well. And that's the power of having a peer group and things like that, right? I mean, that's becoming more and more important. Sadly, I didn't have that. I don't know about Ed, but back in our days, it was very hard to get a peer group. We were very few of us anyway. There were not that many product people.
No, unfortunately not.
I know. Anyway, with that, I'm going to just close. It's 7:02. I have shared the link. I know Kat's shared the link to Hustle Badger. You all have the website. There's a very exciting pipeline, as Ed has mentioned. He's also promised a lot of things in a recorded call. And I'm sure whenever it's launched, our community would be the first ones to know, because he always shares every single thing. So that's amazing. We're also very happy to have Ed as a coach in our network. So thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining, and have a great evening. Ed, thank you so much. It's been a
Thank
real
you.
pleasure. It's a lot of information. I hope people really, really enjoy it. And Kat, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for having me. Great to chat with you all.
Bye.
Bye.